we ever really pray for? Thy will be done. Sometimes we add specifics like grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour or for the living of these days. We remember the poetry of that hymn. Much of the Bible, the Book of Common Prayer we use here at the Wonalancet Union Chapel, and the hymnal we use, the Book of Worship for United States Forces, are built entirely of poetry. Poetry tends to be rhythmic and to stick with us. It's also a form of expression as individual as painting. There are traditions and standards, but there's also expressionism, and there's impressionism, and free form, and picture form, and prose poetry, sonnets, and haiku, and ones that just break all the rules, but you know it's poetry. And there's almost always some kind of utility. We praise, we weep, we sing to the Lord a new song. We praise him with timbrel and dancing. We try to figure things out, and without going on too long about it. A Poetry Sunday tradition has been started and going on at the chapel, invoking and honoring especially the great preaching, service, friendship, and poetry of Brian Kelly. This is not that Sunday. This is a little p Poetry Sunday. You might say a pandemic Poetry Sunday, a placeholder for the one that cannot happen as hoped and planned this year. But our pulpit master, Henry, wanted you to have some poetry, and I thank everyone who showed up virtually or in person to make this happen, so that on some far-flung, nearly unimaginable July Sunday in the year 2020, you can be sort of virtually, as is so often the new way of things, sitting in the chapel, hearing the ticking of the clock, the occasional car or bicycle going by, thinking about, as our Quaker neighbor used to say, eternity in the midst of time. One of my very favorite, very poetic passages is in the Eucharistic prayer on page 370 of our prayer book. At your command, all things came to be, the vast expanse of interstellar space, galaxies, suns, the planets in their courses, and this fragile earth, our island home. By your will they were created and have their being. It goes on, and it's worth reading again and again from as many angles as you can conjure. What grabbed me, and grabs me still decades later, was the vast image built of only 6 words in the shorthand that is poetry of this fragile earth, our island home. Or maybe just the 3 words, our island home. Here we are, nestled among the hills and brooks around us, cushioned by clover and ferns, all in the vast expanse of interstellar space among the galaxies, suns and planets in their courses on our fragile island home. We all hope you find some things that strike you in these readings today. This is The Great American Poem by Billy Collins. If this were a novel, it would begin with a character, a man alone on a southbound train, or a young girl on a swing by a farmhouse. And as the pages turned, you would be told that it was morning or the dead of night, and I, the narrator, would describe for you the miscellaneous clouds over the farmhouse and what the man was wearing on the train, right down to his red tartan scarf and the hat he tossed onto the rack above his head, as well as the cows sliding past his window. Eventually, one can only read so fast, You would learn either that the train was bearing the man back to the place of his birth, or that he was headed into the vast unknown. And you might just tolerate all of this as you waited patiently for shots to ring out in a ravine where the man was hiding, or for a tall, raven-haired woman to appear in a doorway. But this is a poem, and the only characters here are you and I, alone in an imaginary room, which will disappear after a few more lines, leaving us no time to point guns at one another or toss all our clothes into a roaring fireplace. I ask you, who needs the man on the train? And who cares what his black valise contains? We have something better than all this turbulence lurching towards some ruinous conclusion. I mean, the sound that we will hear as soon as I stop writing and put down this pen. I once heard someone compare it to the sound of crickets in a field of wheat, or more faintly, just the wind over that field, stirring things that we will never see.
One must say yes to life and embrace it wherever it is found. And it is found in terrible places. For nothing is fixed forever and forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with each other, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out.
The thing about love. 2 months after he died, I remembered the warmth of his hoofs, the way I'd bend over, tap one leg at a time, my request for him to lift a hoof for me to clean. I'd hold the heft of it in one hand, the curve warm and smooth, except for a few nail stubs left rough from the farrier's tired rasp. I don't know what I'm going to do with all that love I had just for him. I think that's the thing about love, that it has to have a round trip, like a ride through the fall leaves and back to the barn for the sweet smell of hay.
This is Bilbo speaking. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now, far ahead, the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way where many paths and errands meet. And whither then? I cannot say.
In the garden. A slow lament echoes all day long. A black man's voice, a muted trumpet as I pull little weeds, water baby plants, wander around to tidy and tend the yard, and crown thy good with brotherhood. Mow lovingly around the young garden, spreading carefully the clippings caught, and crown thy good with brotherhood. In a mulching bag behind the push mower. What is the mulching bag attached to the machine? The cruel cutting blades of rioting and police lines? And crown thy good, the tear gas, flashbangs, the rubber bullets, with brotherhood. The people fallen under blind racism, and the whole world's upswelling fills the streets and byways. America, America. All the world is crying, primed and raw by pandemic, the ongoing great pause that whispered to us all that something is not right, hearing and knowing too. You may walk in my garden if you keep the garden green in the cool, cool of the day. This is an analogy and truth. America, crown thy good with brotherhood. Keep the garden. Keep the garden. Keep the garden.
The script. When I wondered what would assuage grief, I thought first any flower, actually any petal, the shape, the scent. Bring me the baby, her round face, the pink cheeks, or a schooner's waterline, like a long, low smile, almost reserved, coming from someone you've loved a long time. Give me horses in a green field, blue sky, split rail fence, the whole bit. Or the shape of wind engraved in S-curves on crusty snow. Or lapping the shore, the random colors of pebbles and rocks awash. Throw in a sunset blasted with pinks, purples, grays. I mean it. I want every single cliche, even the corniest, because I can't feel the core of grief. I don't give it enough time, though it's running me like a stampeding elephant. There's too much of it, and if I have to keep on going, and I don't know yet what toward, except the passing of time.
Calendar. Today is actually Sunday, which I know, but the date hasn't caught up. Or at any rate, I am confused by the number and the import of it. Even though perhaps I knew something about it today, which you could call a slippery sense of reality, or the way the theory of time began to niggle at Einstein.
Coming of age. This green week, the birches are coming of age. Leaves big as young bears' ears, vivid as frogs. Catkins dropping to fall, with luck, into some lovely spring earth and make baby birches. They don't have to prove their age or rise to their father's challenge that he'll give each of them a gold watch on their 21st birthdays if they don't smoke or drink first. Their virtue rests perennial in the air. They don't worry if they should let the sullen boy at the rainy Danish youth hostel where they turn 21 join the two of them in the VW to drive rootless and callow south on dusty summer soils to Greece. The birches are not inclined to imagine that the dark oaks across the field are dangerous. Threads of myceliae connect them underground, a common web. They talk. Early trauma will cause them to twist and scar. Parts of them may die, but they do not conclude that the insects, rocks, or fallen pines of the earth hate them, nor enlist the other birches in war. They do not seize territory, simply drop roots on land burnt or logged, doing their part in the old succession. They want only water to drink, and they imbibe at any age, no need to boast majority. We sweep with their discarded boughs. Their burls give us healing tea. Their lives are short. They crumble quietly, these kin of ours, and fall to nurture the next.
In dangerous times, hold fast to courage. In dangerous times, hold fast to love and sing. to love.
Equal rights. I went to North Conway to stand for the last hour of the peaceful protest, which I call, and which is, for me, a stand-in. Youthful cheers and hope swelled with each honking car, each raised arm, and my tears for their fervent zeal and hope. When I left in the long gold light of late day, there also rose from the grass only 2 blocks south the haunting sound of crickets.
This is a poem by Seamus Heaney called Lightnings, number 8. The annals say when the monks of Clonmacnoise were all at prayers inside the oratory, a ship appeared above them in the air. The anchor dragged along behind so deep it hooked itself into the altar rails, and then, as the big hull rocked to a standstill, a crewman shinned and grappled down the rope and struggled to release it, but in vain. "This man can't bear our life here and will drown," the abbot said, "unless we help him." So they did. The freed ship sailed, and the man climbed back out of the marvelous as he had known it.
New order. Mice have returned en masse, rioting, partying, and mating happily all night, and also leaving their signs everywhere they go. I have decided to act in this wooden place when there is rioting and unrest all around the world. Me to rout mice, all of us to stem racism and practice brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
The ball. As long as nothing can be known for sure, no signals have been picked up yet. As long as Earth is still unlike the nearer and more distant planets. As long as there's neither hide nor hair of other grasses graced by other winds, of other treetops bearing other crowns, other animals as well grounded as our own. As long as only the local echo has been known to speak in syllables, as long as we still haven't heard word of better or worse Mozarts, Platos, Edisons somewhere, as long as our inhuman crimes are still committed only between humans, as long as our kindness is still incomparable, peerless even in its imperfection, as long as our heads packed with illusions still pass for the only heads so packed, as long as the roofs of our mouths alone still raise voices to high heavens, let's act like very special guests of honor at the district fireman's ball, dance to the beat of the local oompa band, and pretend that it's the ball to end all balls. I can't speak for others. For me, this is misery and happiness enough. Just this sleepy backwater where even the stars have time to burn while winking at us unintentionally.
A reading from Paul's letter to the Romans. I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Now, if I do what I do not want, I agree that the law is good. But in fact, it is no longer I that do it, but sin that dwells within me. For I know that nothing good dwells within me, that is, in my flesh. I can will what is right, but I cannot do it. For I do not do the good I want, But the evil I do not want is what I do. No, if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I that do it, but sin that dwells within me. So I find it to be a law that when I want to do what is good, evil lies close at hand. For I delight in the law of God in my inmost self, but I see in my members another law, at war with the law of my mind, making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members. Wretched man that I am, who will rescue me from this body of death? The word of the Lord.
Here's a poem, This Amazing, by E. Cummings. I thank you, God, for this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees, and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and wings, and of the gay, great, happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the no of all nothing, human merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened.